We have officially crossed the line, being past the Klaus Saga and past the release of Xenoblade Chronicles Cross Definitive Edition. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you all back. I hope you guys enjoyed your time with the latest release from Monolith Soft. I know that opinions about the new chapter were quite mixed, but I'm not here for that. This video is about something way more important. Mysteries and questions that are still open and unanswered. Let's see what we got.
Well, you still found so quick.
Let's start with something more tame first. First question, what's up with those motes? We have golden motes, blue motes and red motes. Blue motes mean that someone returns back to the flow. Zed was talking about it all the time, and now we know that the flow he meant is quite likely and quite literally just a flow of conscience. The nexus that exists between the worlds and infinite universes. And it seems that this is what they meant by communicating through the medium of light, and probably the way how Origin would have restored the universe again. The Lifehold core from Cross and Origin from 3 are in a lot of ways very similar to each other. Instead of the DNA, aka data center thing you have in the Lifehold core, the numbered games had with Origin the core crystals that would contain all the necessary information about life, thanks to Klaus. But that still doesn't explain how the motes exactly work. If they turn yellow, they leave the flow, go into the afterlife, but things can still be taken back from the afterlife back into real life. And while we are at it, what about the red motes? They also seem to be indicating that you're returning back to the flow. In any case, it is related to the collective conscience nexus thing, and how it actually works and what special rules maybe are applied here are still a mystery to us. But let's get to the second question, and one of the biggest can of beans I'm about to open. This is the most interesting and most exciting part, something that I'm also really looking forward to. And something I was also predicting during the streams, that the next saga will be the Samaarian saga, or also the Ancient Human saga, or also the Zohar/Conduit saga, which in a way is all more or less the same in the end. But how is that possible, you might wonder? Well, for that I have to go back to Gears and Saga for a little bit, otherwise I can't explain why it excites me so much. I haven't played Xenosaga, but the concept of ancestors, or even creator of the humans that we know from today, is part of every Xeno series. I'm not sure once again about Saga, but in Cross and Gears you barely learn anything about them. I would say that this is one of the biggest mysteries in the series. And usually Takahashi was never able to tell their stories, thanks to the history of him working for Square and Bandai Namco. He never really came that far, which has changed now with him working for Nintendo and being able to tell his story. You see, all Xenoblade games reuse a lot of concepts from previous games, including also the book known as Perfect Works.
Yes!
But with something like those ancient humans, we are entering a completely new territory. Something we know nothing about. Something we have never seen before. Being somehow older than the universe itself. That have learned to travel into different universes, spreading the humans we know today into a lot of different realities. The similarities are also interesting. The story of Void seems almost like a what-if scenario. What if the Klaus experiment would have succeeded? What if the experiment would have brought humans onto the next evolutionary step, granted them the power to be as gods? It almost seems like things are coming full circle here, like an Ouroboros. This shot is straight up from Xenogears. You see the shot in the very first cutscene. I have heard that this shot is also seen at the end of Xenosaga 3, but I won't look anything up regarding Xenosaga for now. Once again, this feels like we are entering a completely new territory. But coming back to the Samaarians and Void in this case, it is something that Luxon talked about in his latest video, and something that makes perfect sense. the bug or error that was caused inside Origin was never really explained. The leader of that bug, which was Zed, who looked like... well... he didn't look like a Hyantia, or Gormoti, or anyone we have ever seen, really. Oh, look at that, a Samaarian. Wait a minute. You know, since Origin was probably connected to the conscious thing, the Nexus, who isn't to say that a Samaarian was the issue? Kinda hacked himself into Origin, and possessed it like Void did with the Vita. Ancient humans, Samaarians. We barely know anything about them, but what we do know about them makes them so much more interesting. These lore drops in Xenoblade Cross Definitive Edition weren't there just because. This is the future, and boy, it is connected. I mean, it's not literally connected. Maybe you didn't see it, but if you zoom into one of those cutscenes, you saw a few pixels of Xenogears floating around. Bonus question. Do you sometimes feel like you need to calm down a bit and relax more from time to time? I have the perfect solution for you. You should go gambling. And that was a joke. Don't worry, there is no product placement here, but I received emails where people offered me a bit if I would promote their online casinos and other physical products I see no point in promoting. You know who would try to sell it to you anyways? Nopons. And I will take this opportunity to promote my video on Nopons. Because the things that Tatsu says are even more interesting now. It is said that Nopons exist outside of the flow. You guys are disgusting. I was comparing Chapter 13 and the Ghost to the Loki series and the TVA. But you know what Nopons are? The Watchers, who are constantly present, watching over everything, but are never interfering with the events happening in the world. They just go with the flow without really being a part of it. And now, how would Tatsu know about the legendary frontier village? And the Nopons about the existence of a Monado? I am native to Mira. Mira isn't real. It's just as real as the universe of the Bionis and the Mechonis. I just realized that I haven't even talked about L. Let's add him to the bonus question. Mr. El Sirufe, which is an acronym for Lucifer, who is constantly referring to himself as we, who also has a never-seen Mobius-like final form, wants to tell me just as much, that he is native to Mira. Where are your friends, buddy? What kind of a race are you, demons? Cut content that wasn't explained, ladies and gentlemen. But El survived. So you know what that means. I also just realized there's also Eleonora and the J-Buddies. Anyways, third question. Origin. Well, no, the Aegises course. Creations by Void, when he was simply a Samaarian of flesh and blood, I think, who successfully distilled the power of the Conduit into 6 cores, giving everyone in possession of those cores essentially the ability to emulate the power of the Conduit and the possibility to jump between realities. With the help of the Ares Prime in this case. To quote something from the game, Ares' cores were the product of Void's research, formed by resolving the power of the ultimate matter, dubbed the Conduit, into its component elements. Okay, so what's this then? Actually, pause. Let's go a little bit further back. What on earth is an Ouroboros? I swear, this is also in some way some Samaarian tech. Unironically, I wouldn't be surprised if everything is just kinda related to Samaarians, like everything. Even the origin metal, which we don't know how it came into our possession. It could also be from them. Don't ask me how, this is what this video is about. In any case, ancient humans are the future. I was really thinking about the possibilities of how the world of Shulk and Rex were able to get their hands on essentially Samaarian tech. It makes sense now why there can only be 6 Ouroboros at the same time, but honestly, maybe it was like that. Klaus started the experiment, triggered events of, I don't know, somehow Void at the end being released. Eventually, Alois Bernhold is trapped in between universes. Maybe when he joined Lao in the afterlife, they were able to take advantage of those cores. I don't know. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is technically the shortest game in the series. The entire game happens in less than a second. Right time, right place, maybe. But that reminds me, the Ghosts had also those cores, antimatter cores. But weren't those artificial? Like creations? Wait. Question number 4. What are ghosts? The ghosts are the universe's corrective system, yes, I know. The TVA in a nutshell. But it isn't quite so simple. They almost work like an antivirus. Once someone was able to take advantage of the conduit, copy the power of the conduit, which is probably somehow tied to the ghost to a certain extent, they go after the whole universe, just deleting the universe. That is quite extreme. And since they just traveled to another universe, they will be back. It is very likely, at least. Maybe it's a completely different reason. Who knows what Void had in mind? His experiment was successful after all. He had an infinite amount of energy at his disposal. Maybe he simply became a threat to the universe. And once the universe, whatever the universe quote-unquote would be in this case, I mean, we could go as far as to say God, felt threatened, it started to defend itself with the use of ghosts, angels of death. May I remind you that Tatsu was straight up asking if God is real. Well, it doesn't really have to be the God, but simply just a being of a higher dimension. Who knows? Maybe someone who is way more important to the entire Xeno series than we expect. I'm not talking about a Nopon Arcsage here, but it very well could be the case. All jokes aside though, it is something related to the last, and besides the Samaarians, the biggest unanswered question we have in the Xenoblade Chronicles series. Question number 5. Where and what is the conduit? We got a new glimpse at the conduit, though at this point it's not the conduit, but one of the conduits, since this one is purple, which is funny. What's next, red? You see, the conduit is like a door that leads to another room, the other room being another universe. It's only logical to say that this room also has a door. The door connects those two rooms, and it appears that those doors can look slightly different between universes. Considering Gears and Saga and how the Zohar looks different in each game, plus also concept art for Xenoblade 3 that shows the inside of Origin that has hundreds of Zohars from Xenogears aligned like the doors in Monsters Inc., with the only exception being that the eye is replaced with the turn markers they all had. Or also the place for the final battle kinda looking area, having hundreds of Xenosaga looking Zohars all around the place. It's not crazy to say that, I mean, yeah, there are a lot of them. But I will go one step further. Perfect Works is one of the craziest books I have ever seen and read. I have never seen a piece of fiction being explained in so much detail and so in depth regarding characters, the worlds, politics, with a massive timeline talking about games that haven't even happened yet. I'm not even over-exaggerating that this book talks about real science, biology, mathematical equations, and things that could theoretically be possible, even dropping the name of Einstein. It's really overwhelming and quite fascinating. There is one piece of information that gets never explained though. Something that ever since Gears has stayed a secret. Also, I ask you not to spoil Xenosaga stuff in the comments. I mention it every time, but it seems Xenosaga fans think that every self-proclaimed Xeno fan has obviously played Saga, and go full-on spoilers every time. Even in my comments. Thank you guys. Truly. Right, the detail is regarding the Zohar, and maybe even the Conduit in this case. I won't read it all. I think that if you're curious, you should read it all yourself. It will change how you will look at the Xeno series as a whole. The info that is important for us is saying that the Zohar is potentially an artificially created form, whose origin is 15 billion years old, and as a matter of fact, seems to be originating not from the universe it's currently in. According to the Big Bang Theory, our universe is 13.8 million years old. Something ain't right here. Somehow the Conduit also started to disintegrate and to go somewhere else, it seems. I'm just wondering here, why does the Conduit exist in the first place? What's the purpose of its existence? Was it created by someone? Someone way more powerful? Maybe even beyond our imagination? We may find out sooner or later. But imagine the possibilities and opportunities Monolith Soft now has, with the power of the Switch 2. This will be incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, is there a question regarding Xenoblade that bugs you? Have I missed something crucial? Please let me know in the comments. I wish you all a fantastic rest of your day. Once again, a massive thank you to the constant supporters of this channel, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Yeah, that's right, you better subscribe. Did you know that 85% of my viewers aren't subscribed? If I calculate it in my brain real quick, I would have 40,000 subscribers. That's a lot. Also, did you know that 97.8% of my viewers are men?